So moved. Second.
All right, all in favor, Jeff,
Aye.
George,
Aye.
Paul,
Aye.
Marianne,
Aye.
and I might as well. All right. All right, thank you very much. We are now going to come to order at 7:03 on August 12th, 2021. Welcome to the Sherborn Select Board. Can I please have a motion to call to order?
I move to call the meeting to order.
Can I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, Jeff,
Aye.
Marion,
Aye.
George,
Aye.
Paul,
Aye.
and I might as well. If I could please have the town administrator please read the agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First, amend or approve the agenda and then a period of public comment. The first item on the agenda is the consent agenda with payroll warrant and draft minutes from May 13th, 2021, May 20th, 2021, May 25th, 2021, May 27th, 2021, and June 10th, 2021. And the next select board meeting dates are set for August 26th and September 9th and September 23rd. The second item is Pine Hill Access Road Campus Award of Bond Anticipation Notes with Heidi Doyle, Town Treasurer. The third item is consideration of joint appointment of Planning Board with Zach McBride, Seth Malloy, Robert Wolf, and Frank Hoke as candidates. Discussion with Conservation Commission regarding decision to opt out of the Central Mass Mosquito Control Agreement. Item 5 is consideration of acceptance of American Rescue Plan Act funds. Deb Seifring, Interim Finance Director. Number 6 is consideration of ARPA funding request with Deb Seifring, Interim Finance Director. Number 7 is announcement of, that's the same thing. Okay. Item 7 is announcement of vote on communication specialist agreement. Article 24 of Police Collective Bargaining Agreement, MCOP Local 158. Item 8, consideration of routine business with select board reports and town administrator reports. And then adjourn to executive session with 3 items. And the first item is meeting with town council in executive session pursuant to Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 30A, Sections 21A, 3, 6, and 7, and Suffolk Construction versus DCAM 449 Mass 444, 2007, to discuss 31 Hunting Lane, 41 North Main Street, and Igor Labarsky et al. Versus Town of Sherborn. Number 21, miscellaneous PS 000193 HPS. Item 2 is strategy session discussion to prepare for negotiations with non-union personnel and/or to conduct negotiations with non-union personnel and to obtain legal advice from town council pursuant to Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 21A 27, and Suffolk Construction versus DCAM 449, Massachusetts 444, year 2007, Town Administrator. Item 3, to discuss strategy with respect to threatened potential litigation if the chair so declares that an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the litigation position of the select board in town, and the chair so declare. To discuss the town library pursuant to MGL Chapter 38, Section 21A 3 and 7, and Suffolk Construction versus DCAM 449, Massachusetts 444, year 2007.
Great, thank you very much, David. Do I have any comments or motions relative to the agenda, please?
Move approval.
So moved. A second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor, Jeff,
Aye.
Marion,
Aye.
George,
Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
I am also aye. I believe we have a request for public comment. Our Fire Chief, Zach Ward. Zach, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to take a moment and inform the board that effective today, Sherborn Fire Captain Josh Buckler has been appointed as the new Deputy Fire Chief due to the retirement of Deputy Chief John Dowse. Josh went through an assessment center this week that consisted of a panel of several outside fire chiefs. I think most of you know Josh. He's a lifelong resident of the town. He co-owns a business in town. Josh is also a certified firefighter, fire officer, fire instructor, and paramedic. He was appointed to the department in 1996 by Chief Fran Heffernan, was promoted to the position of lieutenant in 2004 by Chief Neil McPherson, and then to the position of captain in 2018 by Chief Aaron Kinney. He served as the department training officer, and he's also served as acting fire chief in the past. And we certainly really look forward to working with Josh in his new role, and as we continue to move the department forward. He's just an all-around great guy, and we're really excited to have him step up into this new position. So thank you. And I just, being second in command of the fire department, I just wanted to let the board know right away.
That's great. And please tell him congratulations. Unless he's on this meeting, I can't see him. But
He's not. He's actually running a training session for the
I know,
department.
they trained during our meeting.
Very
next door.
good. Very good. Yes.
He's a great guy.
Thank you, Zach.
Thank you.
All right, without any public comment, agenda item number 1, consent agenda. Any questions, comments relative to the consent agenda? I do have actually one question. Oh, sorry. Before, just because relative to like meeting dates, even though with the uptick, it doesn't look like it's going to happen for a bit, but maybe it's a question for David or Diane. What would it take if we wanted to try a live meeting at some point over like the next 6 months or something like that? We have to arrange to have them come and record it and something like that. It's just something I was just thinking about the other day.
To have a live meeting and still broadcast over Zoom?
I don't know. In framing, they're experimenting with hybrid meetings. I do know that.
Yeah.
Do we have that technology yet to start with a hybrid meeting?
That's what that government Zoom is that I was had mentioned.
Okay.
And it has that feature to be able to have call-ins and live interaction in and out of the room that you're in.
Okay. Like I said, with the recent uptick, I don't know if it's anything in the foreseeable future. I was thinking about this right after our last meeting that, if we ever want to call it experiment one or do one, I mean, whatever. Just me thinking outside the box there.
No, we'll definitely try it.
Yeah. Okay.
Probably need some more equipment. I've talked to Sean about, like, we might need a big flat screen monitor or something to show the people that are remotely participating or whatever, in addition to them being able to see us, then we could maybe see people who are contributing virtually.
Get a large monitor. Okay.
Something like that. So we'll have to think it through.
I'll have to purchase it right before the Super Bowl. All right. Any motions, I guess, relative? Yeah, Paul, please.
I had a comment about the dates. I have a special town meeting on November 4th.
Okay.
And that appears to be on our schedule of November 4th. I don't know what the schedules are of all the other boards in town, but we've been trying not to get too out of sync with that meeting date.
Let's take a look here. So what have we got here? We've got 26. All right. So right now, we're holding to an every other week. In the past, we've done like first and third, second and fourth. Does anyone have any thoughts? And when you go every other week, it's like sometimes we land on conservation and planning, sometimes we don't. You know what I mean? I think conservation is like first and third. Do we want to keep it every other thing, or I guess what are some thoughts on that?
I think we just need to stay consistent. We need to, if we're going to do every other, we got to stick with it, because we've asked conservation and these other committees not to have meetings the same night as us. So changing our meetings if they're going to continue with their plans for their meetings. I don't know. Is it, I see Courtney, I know there's other people from the conservation on here. Does your schedule like the second and fourth Thursdays or every other Thursday, or how do you schedule your meetings, Courtney?
Yeah, it's the first and third. Michael can, yeah, correct me if I'm dreaming, but it's the first and third, and it's been that way for
Okay,
God knows
so
how
maybe
long.
we do the second and fourth, Eric, and we don't conflict with conservation.
Yep, second and fourth only runs into issues in the holidays because the fourth inevitably lands on Thanksgiving and Christmas.
Right.
Well, we should jointly check with ZBA because they have Thursday ones too. So maybe we can cause them to be first and third
I
also.
think if Jeannie can correct me if I'm wrong, if she's on here, but I think ZBA is more, they sometimes have Tuesdays, they sometimes have Wednesdays. They schedule kind of based on developer availability. Is that-
They, hi, it's me. They do it more for availability than anything else. We're meeting on September 2nd, which doesn't cause a problem with your meetings. They try to do Tuesday, but I think this past year was really hard because they were balancing like 340Bs.
You know, I'm having a sensation of deja vu because I swear we had exactly the same conversation at our last meeting.
Right.
And as I recall, we tentatively agreed that we would go, if conservation is first and third Thursdays, we would go with, I think, second and fourth.
Right.
And the question came up at the third meeting, but we left that open.
I mean, if you go twice a month, it's 2 less meetings a year versus every other week. One of the
Yeah.
holidays.
Not a big deal.
I think we should do the 2nd and 4th. And
Okay.
then we'll figure it out around the holidays, around like Thanksgiving and Christmas.
Now, Paul, what was your conflict again? Just remind me.
I have a special town meeting. That's the first Thursday in November.
Okay.
Paul, you broke up there. Could you repeat the date?
It's the first Thursday of November. So
Which
a
is
second,
November 4th.
so a second and fourth would actually avoid Paul's conflict.
Right,
Yes,
but then we would fall on Thanksgiving and we'd have to see I guess we could kind of play it by ear to see if we need a meeting at that point or not. Because sometimes that time of year we're not as busy because it's prior to budget season.
Yep. Okay, do we need a motion for this, or is this something we can just kind of do if everyone agrees? So does anyone not agree with the second and fourth model?
Well, why don't we just have at our next meeting, put it on the schedule as 2nd and 4th of every month, and then we can approve the future meeting dates at our next meeting.
Bring a revised sheet to you.
Yeah,
No, if I remember correctly, though, didn't we alter something because like Dover sucked up when we go live meetings? Dover sucked up the people who do our recordings because they had the same schedule as us. Does anyone remember that?
yeah.
What did they have?
Are they doing live meetings in Dover or are they still doing remote as well?
Remote as well.
I guess it doesn't really matter at this point.
But we're 5 and they're only 3. Maybe we could just have a tug of war or something and beat them.
Well, they can actually attend our meetings and get that stipend, that dinner stipend that they get.
Exactly. Let's not go there tonight.
They're probably watching. Okay. So for now, on the next schedule, we'll put in a second and fourth, and maybe if things pop up like recording issues or conflicts, whatever, we'll do it. But at least then we won't have conflicts with some other boards. That sounds good. And Paul's conflict won't exist either, so that'll be nice as well. Takes care of that. All right. So now, is there any motion relative to the consent agenda?
Yeah, I move that we approve the consent agenda with the payroll warrant, draft minutes, and select board dates as noted.
All right. Do I have a second?
second,
All right. All in favor, Jeff,
All right,
Marion,
Aye.
George,
Hi,
Paul?
aye.
I am as well. I just looked it up, and Dover's every other Thursday. All right, so second agenda item, Pine Hill Access Road Campus Award of Bond Anticipation Note. Heidi Doyle, Town Treasurer.
Good evening. So I'm here to ask for a motion to approve the award to a bond anticipation note. We went out for bid and for the Pine Hill Access and Campus, and we got 6 bids. It was a good event for us. The lowest interest rate we came in was 0.0368 is what the yield ended up being.
wow.
So yeah, very happy with that. So we would have to do a motion, and then I'm going to have to work out signing on Monday morning. Jackie's on vacation, so she's going to witness the vote and then see if Monday morning I can get at least 3 select board members to come in and sign the documents. Would be appreciated. So the proposed motion is move to award Oppenheimer and Company, also known as Seed and Company, a bond anticipation note for $1,611,735 for Pine Hill Access Road Campus for 1 year.
So moved.
So can I ask a question, Heidi? Would we then go to, once it's completed, go to a longer term bonding?
We have to see if we are going to be getting any funds, because I couldn't put this in the long-term bond I'm planning for October because of the potential of funds or grants. So I'm
Okay.
going to do it. This is going to be a 1-year term,
Yep.
and it'll be effective from the 24th of this month. to the 24th of next year. And at that
Okay.
point, we can assess it. We might go another year and combine it with some school routes or some other points at that, a bigger grouping.
Yeah, my only concern is I like spreading these long-term assets out over time, so future residents pay their share. Is the only
Right,
aspect, so.
right. I just can't borrow this amount if we end
No.
up getting 500,000.
Well, not only that,
Yes.
yeah, it's still under construction, so usually we can't until it's,
Right.
completed also.
Right.
I
Thank you.
believe are roadways limited to 10-year bonds? How long can bonds? for?
I think it's gonna be a 10-year.
Yeah, I think,
That makes
license,
sense. Yeah,
that's
that
it.
makes sense.
Yeah. So this is just for the construction part, an interim till we get the final budget amount and then move towards a long-term bond in the future.
Okay. Okay, with all that being said, we have a motion, a move, an initial motion by Paul for this. Now, does anyone have a second?
A second.
Okay. All in favor, Jeff,
Aye.
Marion,
Aye.
George?
Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
I am also aye. Okay, very good.
Diane, did you
Yeah.
get the amount? Do you need the amount or you have it? You're good? All right.
Okay. Could I find out what time would work for everyone to meet so that Jackie is there to witness the signatures on Monday? Are there 3 people available to meet Monday morning?
Hang on one second.
Okay,
Yeah,
I
I'll
can
definitely
do
come,
that.
but let me just, give me a minute here.
okay.
I could do that, Heidi.
Oh,
You
great.
want to, would 9 AM be okay?
Jackie, is that okay with you?
Jackie, do you need an exact time or is the time
No,
window okay?
No, I'll be in the office around 8.
Yeah, I'll be in, I can stop by.
Okay,
I need to be there earlier, I can, but,
No.
okay.
okay.
No, I'll be there.
Problem.
I'll be there.
All
when
right, so
you come.
we'll plan on any time after 8 o'clock in the morning for at least 3, and if anyone else can make it, that would be great.
Okay, very
Thank you
good.
very much.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Heidi.
Bye, thanks, Jackie.
Okay, agenda item number 3, consideration of joint appointment to planning board. And we have 4 applicants for 2 spots, Zach McBride, Seth Malloy, Robert Wolf, and Frank Hook. Now, Chris, did you want to call the planning board?
Yes.
to order?
Yeah, before we continue, I'd like to call to order the planning board meeting of August 12th, 2021. I'm not going to ask for a vote. I'm just going to call it to order, so you can go ahead.
Mhm, okay,
Yeah, Eric, you're aware that Zach McBride was determined to be not eligible because of not being a registered voter, unless that's changed since last I heard.
now I was going to ask for a report actually from Jackie on that issue as well.
Okay,
But
great.
real quick, am I missing his Addie somewhere here? I just want to scroll over.
She signed on. I let her in a little while ago.
So I just want to
Okay.
move her over so I can see everyone.
Um,
Just give me 1 second.
I don't
Thank you.
see her right now,
Looks
but
like you're there, yeah. Oh, well.
I definitely let her in the meeting about 10 minutes ago, but I don't see her right now.
She's in here.
Is she?
Yeah. She's muted.
We've asked this question before. I
Yeah,
can't-
there she is. You're right. She's unmuted now.
Eric, may I start
Oh,
the
let me,
discussion?
if you don't mind, give me 1 second. Let me try to find, why can't I find it?
I don't find Addie Mae either.
Hi, guys.
Where
I'm just
are you
trying to
at?
switch from the phone to the computer.
Oh, there
She's
you
there.
are.
She's tricky.
Are you under a different name?
Here.
No, she's under the same name. She's just,
She's not still watching too.
no, that's your friend Sue.
Here.
It says Addie Mae Weiss. I see it. on
There
my
it is,
computer.
there it is. Okay, give me a second there. Sorry about that. Device. Okay, yes, Chris, you want the floor?
Yes, if I could. As everyone knows, there's some talking
Jeff, do
going
the
on.
force mute thing with everyone except for us 8.
I think
As
I got-
everyone knows,
I think I got it.
we have 2 vacancies on the planning board currently. Normally, we would be thrilled to have 2 people come forward to fill these vacancies. We're fortunate that we have 4. My concern is, right now we have, with the current board, we have enough members to do our business. We have some hearings coming up. I don't even know if they'd get up to speed in time for these hearings. But I also want something a little bit more. Where we have 4 people, I'd like to see if we can, only 2 of the candidates have been to any of our meetings. And so I would like to, and I haven't talked to our other board members, I'd like to ask Will and Addie May what their thoughts are on maybe continuing this vote and allowing all the candidates a few opportunities to come to our meetings, contribute to our meetings. And I mean, quite honestly, Addie May's been working on housing for, I don't know, 4, 5, 6 years. And I want someone who's going to be committed. If I can pick, I'd like someone who would be committed to working with Addie May on that and giving her a little bit of a break. And this year, Will's going to be working on our regulations and bylaws. And the same thing, it's going to be a long winter of working line to line. And if there was someone else that said, boy, I'd love to work on it with him, I would like his input with that. And I want someone who has a passion for improving the downtown, including the safety for the pedestrians and bicycle safety. So, and again, I know them all, and they're all wonderful people. But this isn't a 7th grade popularity contest. So if we're going to choose, I'd rather have the opportunity to choose the people that would better serve and maybe even run for re-election in the spring. So if I may, I'd just like to hear what Addie May and Will think about this. If they feel, Chris, you're wrong, and we just want to vote, I'll go along with whatever the consensus is. But this is my feeling right now. So Will or Addie May, you would?
So Chris, it sounds like what you're proposing is sort of like a longer audition period over the next few meetings to have people sit in and weigh in on the issues that we're discussing and see how they fit in with the board and how they may, their strengths may add to the strengths that we already have. Is that the idea?
That's exactly what I would like to see.
Okay.
And I guess I'll just say, to add to that, I mean, we have a situation where unfortunately we lost 2 very seasoned planning board members at the same time. So it's not the usual. And there's also a challenge, when someone is on a board in our town, it's, we're all neighbors. It's uncomfortable to run against each other. So right or wrong, people don't tend to contest elections. So it'd be nice if we had a couple meetings where people who were interested in the planning board were in attendance and had some dialogue. I know it's been hard with COVID. That's all to sometimes have those dialogues, but also been some virtual meetings which make it easier for people to attend.
So back to my original question, Addie May and Will, what do you think about it's the will of the board and it's the will of the selectmen, but what's your feeling about putting it off and giving the applicants an opportunity to come in and see how they're going to interact, look for their passion for it. And again, I want someone who's going to help Addie May, and I want someone who's going to work with Will. So I want, and basically I'd like a consensus of the board before we come to the selectmen, if possible, and just say these 2 people we like and see where it goes from there. If we had to vote, I'd rather it be a ballot vote, but I know that can't happen. So this is just my sense. So Addie May, please.
I mean, I don't know, if there's an option to have an opportunity to work with some of the applicants a little bit as part of the kind of hearing process coming up ahead, without having to decide the appointments tonight, I'd welcome it, but.
Okay, Will?
Yeah, I feel the same way. Chris, when were you thinking of ending this extended audition period?
I think at least 2-3 meetings. Again, 2 of the people that are interested haven't been to any meetings, and I'm not saying that disqualifies them, but we've got a lot of stuff going on. And I would really like someone who's passionate about it. Sometimes when I filled somebody's position midterm, and basically Higley just wanted a warm body. He needed just to have somebody that would show up at meetings and vote. But we need more than that now. I mean, you guys never miss meetings. You guys have been on the board, I don't know, 5, 6 years. So we've been around. We're a seasoned board. We lost 2 very knowledgeable members, but we can handle the work in front of us for the next couple meetings. And I'd rather slow it down. I'd rather, engage these people, these candidates, and I'd rather see, how they're going to help us rather than just rush to fill a seat. That would be my view. But again, I will.
I think that makes
Whatever
sense,
you guys
Chris.
want.
Something just
Yeah,
shifted.
I think that makes sense.
Okay, so it sounds like your discussion is done and you're looking to actually defer the vote to a date to be determined that you can do it. I would like to recognize Mary Ann up on this side because she's had her hand raised. So hi, Mary Ann.
All right, I have a question for Jackie and for the select board and just a comment. My question is this legal? I mean, can the planning board decide not to fill the positions because the filling of the positions is really in the hands of the select board and the planning board? My second comment is I think the candidates are here tonight, and I think it would be useful for the select board to at least hear from them and get a better sense of who they are, because the applications were very variable in the amount of information they provide, and I must say the application form doesn't give you much guidance on that. So I'd propose that we at least hear from the candidates tonight. But
So yeah, and I'd like to take, sorry, Mary. I'd like to take more discussion from the select board because if you wanted to, the select board could say, screw it, we're going to vote anyway, or whatever else. I personally would be uncomfortable with that if the board were actually working with and has to work with the, appointees, if they're able to and want to push something off, I'm inclined to support that, but I'm looking for discussion among other select board members on your thoughts.
I agree with what Marion said. I want to ask Jackie what legally we can and can't do. And since the candidates did come tonight, I want to give them the opportunity to at least speak tonight. And then I think it's only fair to them that they've put in their applications and they get a chance to be recognized. But I also think we should work together with the planning board. And if they think there's a delay, we need to consider that.
I guess I have one other possible suggestion for consideration. I mean, I support what Chris says. I think it's wise to get a solid team you can count on. But, the Conservation Commission has a setup, and maybe others do, where they have an associate member and then full members. So if I look at the list here, I think we've been told that at least for the time being that Zach can't be a member just because he's not officially a resident of town yet. So another possibility is you could appoint whichever the 2 people are that have been attending the meetings, and the third person could be, an associate member, if that would be useful. I don't know.
May I say something?
There is, I just want to say something. There is one associate, and I think the one associate is actually still filled, but go ahead, Chris.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, I when we knew there was going to be an opening, I had approached our associate member and asked her if she would be interested. She's relatively new to town. She's excited about planning board. She's not interested in being more than an associate member. So then I asked Gino, because initially we had 3, now we have 4. So, and then I asked Gino, could we have 2 associate members? And that's a change that has to go before town meeting, because I thought of all those combinations as well. Basically, I'd like to keep everyone involved.
Yeah, I think it's a good thing, and we may have to have a special fall town meeting for the Cooley Street project, perhaps. So if we decided that was an avenue, we might have a chance to do it this fall.
So if it's okay, Mary, hand raised, and then after that, I'd like to actually go to Jackie for the legal question after you say your spot.
Right, thanks. Yeah, bear in mind, maybe this is also a question for Jackie. One of the candidates who's now not eligible may be eligible in another month or so, which would make 4 candidates,
right,
and a broader and even more difficult choice. But we shouldn't shy away from the difficulty of the choice. We want the best 2 candidates, and I'm not sure they've had enough enough guidance right now to know that, depending on how many meetings they attended, that'll make a difference. I mean, that's not always the case. I didn't attend any planning board meetings before I was elected to planning board, so I wouldn't even be eligible by that metric. So I'm not sure that should be a deciding point, but I would like to hear from Jackie.
So Jackie's not on right now, and thank you, Jeannie, for giving me the text saying that. Want me to try to text her, get her on? I mean, just text her. My instinct tells me that, there might be some time frame, you're probably not required to backfill something immediately, but that's about practice. And but you probably maybe can't leave it indefinitely as well. But frankly, I don't know. I'd rather actually hear from Jackie herself, who hopefully is on soon. So in addition, there was two things there. There's a Jackie question, and what was the other one? Someone remind me. There was something we wanted to. Maybe we can start hearing from the candidates, because I do agree with Marion and George that it's fair to give the candidates spend time. They came here, they filled out the applications. That we hear what they have to say. Unless anyone has any issues, I'm just going to do it in the order that's listed here on the agenda, with Zach McBride first.
I don't see him on the call.
Oh, yeah.
I believe he's been told that he's not eligible at this
Yeah,
point.
so he probably was told he wasn't eligible, so that makes perfect sense. Yeah, didn't do it. All right, well, let's go right on down to Seth Malloy. Seth, are you on?
Yep, can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
All right, I am Seth Malloy, and I've lived in town about 5 years now. I've joined Sherborn Forest and Trail was really the first organization that I joined to get involved in town, and that kind of led me down other paths. I've been on Open Space Committee for a while now, which is a kind of a sub board of the Planning Board. And I've also been on Land Acquisition Committee for quite a while now. So I've been keeping track of what's going on and hearing a lot of information, about different issues. A while back, I did approach Addie about actually working on housing. Is that something that's important to me, and that is something that would be interesting to work on. But yeah, I've been around. I've been paying attention to what's going on, and I'd love to see the town kind of grow and become a better place. I don't know if there's any other.
Yeah.
One other thing that I've done a lot of is worked with GIS data, kind of as just a personal project to create the Sherborn Walks book. And that's actually become really handy for a lot of different committees in town. I've contributed to the planning board's documents, to the open space and recreation plan that I co-authored, and a lot of different things. I know Addie had asked me for something recently, but I've contributed, maps to the Conservation Commission also. I think everybody's at some point. The fire department wanted some maps at one point, but that never worked out. But yeah, that's also been something that's really valuable, and I could see that fitting into, just that alone would add to the planning board quite a bit. It's been really invaluable for the Land Acquisition Committee having the ability to create, to process the data in town and create visuals for everyone to see.
Very good. Thank you, Seth. And I guess if you don't mind, while you're here, are there any questions from either the select board or the planning board for Seth? Yeah. Paul.
I think it would make sense for the candidates to say a little bit about their professional background. I think Seth is an engineer. Is that correct?
Correct.
So maybe candidates should say a little bit about their background.
Yes,
I'm a software engineer. I graduated from Northeastern with a master's in electrical engineering, and I worked in Norwood for a long time at Analog Devices, and now I'm working at Oracle in their cloud business, leading a small team developing networking products.
Very good. Thank you.
I also worked 5 years in India, in Bangalore, which gave me kind of a global perspective on things also.
Are there any other questions? And I'm sure if we revisit this in a little while, there'll probably be another opportunity, but at least, I think it's fair now. Everyone's here. If there's any other questions. Okay. Thank you very much, Seth. Robert Wolf. Hi, Robert. How's it going?
Hi, I'm muted okay?
Yeah. Absolutely. We can hear you. Just please tell us a little bit something about yourself and your background and I guess your interest in the position.
Yeah, I've been living in Sherborn for 28 years. I've done a few things on a couple of town-related things in the time. I was on a bicycle committee here back early in my time at the town. One of the things that we did was put in, we worked on planning the strip of sidewalk that went in on Maple Street in between Old Orchard and the Bear Hill. It's a little improvement for pedestrians in the town. Was a scoutmaster for some years. I've been on the on Sherborn Forest and Trails with Seth for the last several years. I'm interested in general in the various planning board things I've seen at the town meetings, the developments, the 40Bs and such. I'm also quite interested in sort of pedestrian and cycling infrastructure. I think the thing I was particularly interested in is seeing how many years ago when the Rising Tide Development Corporation was first looking at Whitney Farms, I talked to the developer, or one of the representatives, Russ Tanner, several times about getting some access through there, but it was Gino and the planning board that really put in all the work that ended up with that easement and then found the funds, and then they actually improved the rail trail recently. So it's really great to see that coming to fruition, probably close to 20 years after the groundwork for that was put in. Let's see, like Seth, I'm also an electrical engineer, retired now, but had a long career all in Massachusetts. Software and hardware background. Yeah, I would say I don't know a lot about the legal aspects, sort of the building things, but I'm certainly capable of learning and interested in that.
Very good. Thank you, Rob. Do we have any questions from the select board or the planning board? Okay. Thank you very much, Rob. And finally, Frank Hook. I know I saw him before. There he is. Frank, if you don't mind, please say a little something about yourself and why you're interested in this position.
If I may first, I apologize that you can't see me, but right now I'm sitting at a bus stop in California. I'm on vacation. I should have been in my hotel room doing this by now, but traffic jams and so on. We arrived at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. It's now 4:40, and I still haven't gotten to the hotel room. So apologize for that.
Well, thank you for joining us when on vacation.
No, when you talk about a passion for the position, as you know, I've run for select board. I'm very passionate about the town. I've been in town since 1994, 27 years. And of those 27 years, 20 years I've given to the town in terms of being on the school committee for 6 years and running the oversight of our schools. And I've been on our community center, which really is a focus of trying to create a center for our town, trying to create a focus, trying to create a home for the lack of the other amenities that we have in our town in that respect. So when it comes to passion for our downtown, that is really something that I do have. I did go to visit and attend a couple of planning board meetings, both in person and virtually over a period of time. And I found myself becoming more and more interested in this when I was on vacation and I just came back from Europe. And as I was in Europe, a lot of the things that I'm passionate about, I saw some solutions there that I thought could really be a good solution for Sherborn, and combining that also with energy and sustainability for not only our environment and our planet, which is important, and I'm interested as well, but also sustainability in terms of our groundwater. And I saw some things that are really interesting in that, and that I'd like to explore further. And I feel that working together with multiple committees and departments in our town, that I'd like to work on bringing that into the planning board so that it can become part of the bylaws and the plans of our future. So I'd like to look at the downtown aspects as well as the future of Sherborn. And I think planning has a huge role in that, and that's why I'm interested in and excited about the planning board. My background is that I'm a chemist. I have a graduate degree in chemistry, University of Arizona, and I've been in industry. I've been in international business. I've actually even lived in Europe for a number of years, and I've worked in the Far East and Europe, and I've seen a lot of things that has given me a bit of a perspective. And then I've transitioned into teaching right after 9/11, which has given me more time to be able to do some of this work that I'm excited about. It also gives me a background, I feel, in communication and working with bringing some of the what I have that I'm interested in doing into a more global perspective, and also bringing people together and making things happen in our town.
Very good. Thank you very much, Frank. Any questions from the select board or the planning board for Frank? Okay. Now, so I understand that Jackie cannot join us. We will not get an opinion from her. I'm sure a meeting is not illegal or what have you there. Maybe we get an opinion from town council after this meeting to see if there is some kind of time frame or something like that where some kind of time limit you do have to backfill if given the opportunity or what have you there. I don't know if anyone has any thoughts on that. Yeah, Paul, and then I'll add afterwards.
The laws allow us to postpone a decision without anything bad happening.
Okay, very good, thank you. Addie, you had I think a question.
Yeah, I know at the planning board, we've discussed, I mean, we have the good fortune of having, we've had 4 strong candidates, each has different strengths come forward. In some ways, this has been our challenge. And we're also struggling with how, in many situations in the past, our town has kind of one person that's really kind of come forward, and the groups all say, yep, they're qualified, and yep, they'd be great, and that's it. In this situation, how would we couldn't figure out how how does a vote, does planning board have to vote first and then select board vote? Do we have has it been clear on what the process would be for doing a vote when it comes to that time?
I can answer that.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a committee of the whole, which means there would be a total of 8 votes, 5 select board members and 3 planning board members. You all vote together. The boards aren't considered separate for purposes of the vote. Majority wins. So there has to be 5 votes for anyone. And that doesn't have to be 3 from the planning board, can be the 5 can come from any source.
Okay, but do we have, I mean, we don't have ranked choice voting or anything. Do we have a process for kind of order of how votes are taken when you have multiple candidates? Is there?
How I would probably run it, I'll just go right down to each candidate and I'll just say like all in favor, yay, yay, nay, nay, and we count them up what they are. And which is a good question actually, because 3 people could get 5 votes, couldn't they? Maybe
No,
I'll ask.
so-
Yeah, no, go ahead, Paul.
So I was gonna nominate all 3. And so that we would be voting on all 3, and so you would call each of the names nominated and those in favor of those, but each person has only 2 votes. So when you cast your vote, you have to be aware that you have only 2 votes.
But you could still have 3 people get 5 votes each. Is it the
That's-
most votes?
No, somebody's voted 3 times for that.
This reminds me of that town meeting thing we did with the fur. You know what I mean? Where we couldn't do anything.
Yes.
I'm not sure about that.
Well, I
Yeah.
don't think we can vote tonight, really. I mean, if we want to defer, we
Guess
can
maybe
figure out
not.
the technology by, even if we have to do it 2 weeks from now.
No, I guess you're right. I guess they couldn't all each get 5 votes. But yeah, well, we'll definitely figure that out, work that over the next week there. And I will say, just kind of what, on top of what Addie said, it's actually impressive that we actually get a contest like this. So far, we had contested school board, we had contested select board race last election. Last election had the highest turnout in 3 years for a local election, at least. And we actually have a contested situation here for open positions during a non-general election. So I guess public interest and public participation is becoming more popular, and that's
Can I
nothing
add
but
to
a good
that?
thing. Yeah, go ahead, Paul.
I think every volunteer is to be cherished, and we want to welcome them and put them to work. So the fact that there's 2 vacancies and 3 candidates or maybe 4 candidates, I want to be sure that we do nothing to turn off the 2 who do not get elected. And if we can find a place for them, we want them to work for the town. These are all good people. We want them we welcome them. And so we should be approaching this from the point of view of, who's best for the planning board, but also where else can we use them? We've got plenty of vacancies on plenty of committees.
We have 2 associate vacancies on the ZBA. I know that's something that's kind of been standing out there for a bit. Chris, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, to Paul's point, I actually tried to discourage 2 of the members, 2 of the applicants, and I said, ZBA needs the help too, and that would have made it easier for everybody. But that didn't work out so well. So, but you're right. I mean, we want to have everyone contribute, but I think we have an opportunity here to maybe find a perfect fit, or as close to perfect as we can get. So that's all. If we're going to defer, I will make sure Gino reaches out to all of them and lets them know our meeting schedule.
I was gonna say, Chris, when is your next meeting?
We have a meeting on the 17th. It's going to be a quick one, but we have a meeting on the 17th.
Okay. As a side note, I just did some math. There's 8 votes. 8 times 2 is 16. Is actually statistically possible for 3 people to get 5 votes. Anyways, well, we'll figure that out. I'll talk to council in the background behind that. All right. So if there's nothing else, I'm going to bring this agenda item to a close. Is there any other last comments or anything from either board?
Just a comment to the planning board that thank you for everything that you're doing and your willingness to function with 3 members for the short term. We will come to your rescue sooner or later, but thank you. And I think it makes sense to defer to what you want and what needs you express. So I am in agreement with the notion of deferring.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Now, Chris, do you want to bring your meeting to a close, or you just want to hang out and keep talking stuff?
No, we're gonna adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second that.
All right. It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? Addie May?
Aye.
Will?
Aye.
And to the select board, thank you so much and have a great evening.
You too. Thank you very much, Chris.
Thanks, Chris.
All right. So moving on. Agenda item number 4, discussion. It says discussion with Conservation Commission, but I checked and it's allowable discussion overall. Regarding discussion to opt out of Central Mass Mosquito Control Agreement. Now, does anyone want to kick off on this? I guess George, please go ahead, because you did request it. Yeah.
I went back and watched their meeting from June 3rd. This was a meeting on June 3rd that the Conservation Committee held, where they voted to opt out all conservation properties from the central mosquito control agreement. And I'm just a little confused as to their decision. First of all, at the meeting, there was no consultation with the Board of Health or the DPW, which I think when it comes to mosquito control, we really need to hear from the Board of Health. And I know at least Daryl's on here tonight, so I do want to get a chance to hear from them. The other thing I'm wondering is, based on my research, it seems at this point, the spraying is an opt-in program. So you request your property to be sprayed. And if you don't request your property to be sprayed, at this point, it doesn't get sprayed. So I don't understand why the Conservation Commission made this decision to not only opt out when you didn't have to opt out, but also to put up signs all over town on the roadsides that I mean, I find the regulation calls for pie plate size signs that go on trees or poles, and they put up almost like not political signs, but the kind of things you'd see as political signs that say no spray, and they're very close together on all the properties. And the other thing that I have a little bit of an issue with that I want to discuss with the conservation is their agenda item when this was discussed. It was discussed under an agenda item called discussion. There was no mention of mosquito control. And I think that's almost an open meeting violation, because I know a lot of people are very interested in this. And had they posted that they were going to be discussing mosquito control and opting out of it, more people may have attended and had an opinion on this. So I really wanted to bring this up. I really hope that we can have a conversation with multiple departments when we talk about something as important as this, when we're talking about things like West Nile and Tripoli. And we've had a lot of problems with mosquitoes here in Sherborn in the past.
I'm going to recognize Courtney in a second, but I do want to clarify something before I do that, because I think just to kind of clarify, there's kind of two opt-in and opt-outs really. The town itself can entirely opt out by the vote of the select board, and that's kind of what I'm talking about. The term opt-in, opt-out kind of applies to town. This is just conservation controlled properties. The Conservation Commission voted to exclude properties under their control for spraying. So I just kind of want to say that. And Courtney, I'll recognize you. Please go ahead.
Wait, Paul? Oh, sorry.
I just wanted to make a point before we get too far stream.
If it's okay, Courtney, I would like to actually hear Paul's on the select board, so I would like to hear from him, and then I'll.
Sure.
But then I do want to recognize Courtney to at least be able to respond to that. Go ahead, Paul.
So one of the towns where I'm town council had opted out of the mosquito control program. And there are a number of towns who've opted out. So the legislature passed an override that if there's a health emergency, notwithstanding opt-outs, all these kinds of things, they can do what they want, including spraying and doing whatever else is necessary for the public health. And for you to opt out of the safety valve, you have to present and get approval of an alternate plan by which you will do the spraying that's necessary to protect the public health. So there is an override on top of, it's a complicated regulatory system, but on top of what we're talking about is this safety valve where the state has asserted control statewide.
And now, just what you're talking about, Paul, is the town-wide opt-in and opt-out, not the property by property that's kind of happening here. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, it is. Once they go aerial, they don't see the pie plates, and it's just, I think anything gets sprayed once they go aerial. But Marion, I see your raised hand, but if you don't mind, do you mind if I recognize Courtney? Because I think.
No, Courtney should go ahead.
Okay, yeah, please go ahead, Courtney.
Courtney-ack. I'm here as a citizen because we couldn't get a quorum tonight. So I believe that Neil had requested that we postpone this discussion to the next meeting or something, because there's just so many people out and away on vacation. So it's really hard to discuss what the Conservation Commission's thoughts were. And, you know, I can't speak for the whole commission, and I know the chair really wanted to be here. It's just me and Michael. I mean, I can talk about what I think about mosquito spraying, but that's not, I know you have questions about how the decision was reached. So I think it would make more sense to have this discussion when we can rustle up, you know, a quorum of the commission and, you know, possibly, I don't know if you want a quorum of the Board of Health there.
We don't necessarily need a quorum, just someone who basically can speak on their behalf. So at their own meeting, for example, they could discuss this and say, so-and-so, whoever represents, say this, say that. It's also why, so yeah, I did get requests from Neil, but I confirmed from the requestor of this agenda item that they still wanted to hold it. And I did tell Neil that, you know what, if need be, we can just meet again in 2 weeks, but at least it starts a discussion and allows people to understand what the concern is and understand what the issues are. And, you know, at least allows us to have the discussion. To take it off the agenda item would just tie our hands. You can always leave it on and just either, you know, discuss it minimally, discuss it without it. So I do understand that it is difficult this time of year. You know, everyone's rushing to get their vacations in by the end of the summer. I definitely get that. Now, Courtney, you and Michael are welcome to speak either by yourselves or someone to represent what you think the thoughts were. If you're not comfortable doing that, don't. Not that. But I do want to recognize Marianne, who's had her hand raised.
I was only notified on Tuesday that this meeting was happening. So we haven't had a chance to meet to discuss and say like Michael or I is authorized to speak on behalf of the board. So I can only comment on my own personal thoughts right now about mosquito spraying.
Yeah, and don't do anything not comfortable with. I understand that. I do want to recognize Marianne, who's had her hand raised for a while, and then I'll recognize Daryl after that.
Right. I have a quick question, actually, probably for Daryl or Paul. A crux of this will be the state's emergency decision to spray no matter what is their emergency decision. But on what basis? Do you know on what basis they declare that it's an emergency? I mean, is a certain number of West Nile or Triple E cases, or what's the metric there?
Daryl nicely has it.
They're monitoring mosquitoes and human cases.
Right, but there's got to be a number connected to that. So anyway, maybe Daryl knows.
Sure, they have a number.
This is Matt Vitale. So when this happened a couple of years ago, I think it was an individual commissioner choice that sort of said, yep, we're at that threshold. And that was maybe 3 years ago. Daryl, is that right?
I don't remember exactly what triggered that, but I think some combination of what you and Courtney have both said is roughly what it is. So we're in the same position as Conservation Commission. We have talked about this. We looked at it years ago. I just am not up on all the details. I will, though, also mention that there are multiple levels of how mosquitoes are dealt with. One, first and foremost, is whether you participate in the Massachusetts, the Middlesex mosquito control project or not. So that's one level of opting in or out and the town has been part of that for decades, I believe. And that gives individuals within town access to those resources. So that's one level of question. Another is just this year, because of the aerial spraying that was done 2 years ago for Triple E, the state set up something different where there would be aerial spraying, but towns could actively opt out of that. But the timeline for doing that has passed. Then there's different types of aerial spraying. One is a spray pesticide, more of a fogging like thing. And then last year they dropped BTI pellets on various wetland areas within town by helicopter. So anyone who lives near there and was home at the time, you couldn't have missed it. And then there is the ground spraying, and that people can, and then there's also another thing where people can request help for their properties for particular problems where they might do dredging or drainage or something else that gets more disruptive, I'll say, to the environment in terms of what kind of changes they make. So it's a complex web of options, and then there's lots of science about what the effectiveness is of spraying, of the particular type of chemical that they've been using for Triple E. in areas that are forested, and it's not particularly effective would be the, short answer. So it's a very complicated thing. Again, we have discussed it at the Board of Health to some degree, but not in terms of that we're ready to say, okay, here's what we all arrived at. We have discussed it as keeping an eye on the situation because we were expecting another bad year of triple E. And it hasn't quite amounted to that just yet. So it certainly is an important topic that warrants discussion, but somehow I certainly don't feel prepared enough to give something really comprehensive on that. But whether we can lay out what the concerns are now so we know what we want to research further and then be able to discuss in a different way would be my preference.
Okay, thank you very much. I do want to recognize George because George had his virtual hand
I
raised.
have a specific question about something Daryl mentioned, and
then Paul after that.
If we were to opt out as a town, Daryl, what if individuals still wanted their property sprayed? Would they be able, if the town opted out, would individuals still be able to have their property sprayed?
All right, that goes back. I believe that if we opted out from the Middlesex County, because this program goes county by county, if we opted out of the Middlesex County Mosquito Control Board program, then residents would not be able to avail themselves. But the best person to answer that would be Ellen. But I am pretty sure that's what it is.
Yeah, and that's part of my point. I wanted to start this discussion tonight because there are a lot of complications with this. And one of the immediate things, and the reason I wanted to keep it on the agenda this week, because it was me who requested it, is really the effect on the DPW, because I did hear from Sean, it's taken him a lot of additional labor hours to mow the roadsides because of the signs that the Conservation Commission decided to put up. I really wish they would have consulted with him first, and he wouldn't have to be out collecting up to 70 signs in order to mow the roadsides. I don't think that's fair to do that without at least first just consulting with him.
Fair enough. I do want to recognize Paul and then back to Courtney. So Paul, you had something you wanted to add, I believe.
What was more of a question? In preparing for tonight's meeting, I read the agenda. I didn't understand that the agenda item was anywhere like opting out of the mosquito control program. If that's the case, that there should have been considerably more in the packet. Let's copy the statute, copy of the regulations, some analysis, the economic costs, all that kind of stuff should have been included there. So I don't know what this agenda item really is, but if it's about the signs on the roadside, then I think we've heard that. And I don't think we should go forward with a discussion where neither the Conservation Commission nor the Board of Health nor myself are prepared to discuss discontinuing the mosquito control programs that are provided to the community.
We got distracted with a townwide opt-out. The discussion really is about the Conservation Commission's decision to exclude properties under their control for the targeted spraying. That is what the issue and the discussion item is. Courtney, your hand is raised.
Yeah, so the signs, this is not the first year that the commission has opted out of the spraying. And usually it is literally a pie plate that just gets like stuck on a tree. I think there was some miscommunication about that, and someone got nicer signs and put them out. That's not, I mean, it was just a miscommunication, and I think somebody was trying to do something better than the pie plates when it really should have just been the pie plates. You know, and in terms of Sean's extra labor, I mean, we would have taken him down, you know, if you ask. We put him up, we would have taken him down. don't want to cost the town any extra money, so.
Okay. Is there any other discussion about, let's just say, and we keep using the word opt-out, which kind of bugs me because it's not really an opt-out. When it's the Conservation Commission's decision to exclude properties under their control. Matt Vitale.
So this is Matt totally wearing Mill Street resident hat, not Board of Health hat. I guess for me, just one question is, this is not an area I'm savvy in terms of what the boundaries of Conservation Commission is, but just as an outside observer, it doesn't seem surprising that Conservation Commission, if they're responsible for managing the lands, might make a decision about managing those lands without a broader discussion. That sort of seems in scope. And so I guess I'm hoping to understand a little bit more where that issue sits in terms of where those boundaries are between Conservation Commission or Select Board or DPW in terms of managing conservation land.
Well, as far, I'll make one statement, at least with the DPW, because I have a little experience with that. Stuff within the right of way, signs are always kind of tricky. There's some kind of exception. Paul may know better about like political signs and so on like that. But there actually are certain regulations that are actually things you can put within the right of way. I actually do think, and I support some of the whatever opt out, whatever you want to call it. I think there could have been a better thought on putting those right within the right of way where there's mowings, and maybe there could have been some better communication along there. I was copying an email from Sean to Neil asking to have them removed and so on. Yeah, and at least that the DPW act under the selectmen as roadway commissioners and control the public right of way. So that's simply that. Anything that goes in the public right of way has some regulations behind it and is ultimately under the, like I said, the roadway commissioners, the board of selectmen, and through the DPW. As far as control of lands, though, the Conservation Commission, I believe, has unilateral control over lands designated under their control. But if anyone else wants to chime in, but then after I'm going to go down the order I see people.
Sorry, Sean, we should have gone cheap.
So I'll do just because the order I see people in. Did I at least come close to answering your question, Matt?
Yeah, I think for me, I was much less worried about the signage and just the sort of, I think George raised an open meeting question, and that seems like an outstanding question just for transparency, but just to kind of say, like, as an end user, it seems reasonable to say it's conservation land, so conservation made choices about its management. Seem not inconsistent with what I would expect. So I think you got to that, Eric. Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, the only thing I'll say, I watched the meeting as well. I think it was appropriately conducted, and maybe it shouldn't have been under discussions. Maybe it should have been a standalone agenda item as a bullet or something like that, but what have you. Not everyone's agendas are perfect like ours. Just kidding. Daryl, you're next.
Actually, I forgot I still had my hand up, but Matt said it beautifully. I was going to say pretty much the same thing. It seems to me that conservation knows its lands that it's managing, and it seems reasonable. Again, this is me as an individual, also just a Forest Street resident.
Okay. Sean, go ahead.
If I can not talk as DPW director, but I'll talk a father and the guy that put an awful lot of time into the playground at the end of Cemetery Lane. Conservation happens to own a piece of property that has a playground on it, which is unique for conservation. And if nothing else, I would plead that we consider the blanket all conservation properties and think about perhaps the Ward Park playground as a slightly different parcel. We know from past experience, and Daryl may or may not remember this, but the mosquito control people trap mosquitoes behind that area. You're tucked in, but next to a horse farm, 2 different stagnant ponds. It's wooded. There's ball fields. There's tons of kids. There's a pretty high triple E threat. That's usually where they ping pretty early there with triple E, and I think West Nile a few years ago. It seems like we could probably make the case to at least exclude that from the exclusion. It may not matter, because if the threat gets high enough, they're going to just blanket the town. But I would plead that perhaps that one doesn't quite fit into the category, the same as like Mill Pond or some other properties.
So I'm going to ask my own question then, and I see your hand raised, Courtney. Would somehow controlled target spraying decrease the chance of the blanket spraying later by not getting the hits? Because I am against the blanket spraying. When it was 2 years ago, I think they said when they did the state, we're just gonna come down your throat, we're gonna spray it. I work, I think most people know where I work, right on the Sherborn town line. Walking on the sidewalk into my door in the engineering building, there are dead bees all over the place. The morning after that blanket spraying. I'll be interested to know if somehow smart targeted spraying could reduce your chances of the blanket spraying, because I am against the blanket spraying.
Yeah, so just speaking as me personally, as someone trained in public health. So my understanding of the truck mounted spraying is, and this is what we were opting out of, individuals who put up the no spray. So that's just a truck drives around with like a fogger, and they put out an adulticide, so it only kills adult mosquitoes. And they say bring in your pets, bring in your kids. They try to go through at night, ideally when there's no wind, and like on a good day, if conditions are ideal, that fog will go maybe 150 feet on either side of the road, and then it's maybe active in the air for like an hour or two. So it's not killing mosquito eggs. It's not killing mosquitoes that are outside that bubble. And it's not killing mosquitoes that are like, hiding in places and don't get touched by the spray. And then it settles to the ground and it inactivates into God knows what chemicals. So it's really most effective, that road spraying, in an urban area where you have a grid of streets that you can just go up and down and fog the whole thing. And then you could, in that case, actually reduce significantly, in theory, the number of mosquitoes in the air. Going around on a truck that only gets 150 feet outside the road, I mean, that's not even going to reach a lot of people's yards. And especially in conservation land, when there's huge properties in wetlands, it's really just kind of a waste of dumping chemicals, because you kill all the mosquitoes in that bubble, and then 2 hours later they just fly in from another area. And I take Sean's point. I like that's an important thing to consider, and maybe it would make more sense to talk to mosquito control. I can't speak for the commission. We should certainly discuss this, but maybe it would more sense to look at like larvicide in the water. I mean, because that kills the larvae, and then that means you're not going to be getting as many breeding mosquitoes. And I'm not an expert on the topic, but this is my understanding of how it works. I mean, adulticides, they're not really going to have any lasting effect beyond the 2 hours when you spray them. And in Sherborn, that's kind of a drop in the bucket. And like Daryl said, if the cases get high enough, we have no choice, and they may just drop chemicals on the whole town from aerial spraying. So
if I may ask you, Courtney and Michael, when is your next conservation meeting?
Next Thursday, I believe.
Thursday, okay, that's right there. So that's the 19th. I guess could you put something like this on your agenda, not just to talk about this, but maybe specifically talk about this parcel on the playground? I do think it's worth it.
Yeah, we can add that for sure.
It seems like it's something where, as a standalone parcel, I think it might be worth a discussion.
It's already on our agenda.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, we can add the specifics about this parcel, but we'd already put the mosquito spraying discussion on there. So.
Okay, very good.
Eric, can I add something right on that same topic, so we're not switching? I know.
Okay.
Just to continue it, I just signed Monday night an Eagle Scout proposal to completely redo the trails around Ward Park Pond. I think it might be worthwhile, so we don't necessarily expose the scouts too. If we could wait till they clear that whole trail out, it might be more effective, and you might be able to reach more areas that way. But we're going to be completely upgrading the trail, so it'll be much more accessible. It may include benches and kiosks. And so it's a joint project of an Eagle Scout in town who's really excited about doing this. Alex Capillion is his name. I know George knows him very well. So that's his Eagle project. And he's talked to conservation and to the Forest and Trails group. And I think Forest and Trails is the beneficiary, but it's going to be transformative for that. It's been let go for a long period of time. So it's going to be really cool, I think, for Ward Parks. Anyway, it relates to what Sean said about focusing on that particular part of town.
Okay, and maybe mention it. I don't want people jumping too much. I have people nicely raising their hands, and I do want to respect the people who raise their virtual hands. So let me do Marianne, Paul, and then Daryl. Okay, I'll do that order. So Marianne,
right, mine is quick, Eric. It's just really a request. When Concom comes back to select board with this issue, it would be really useful to me to have Concom, if you guys, Michael and Courtney, could take this back and make sure that when you come back to select board, whenever you talk about spraying, be sure to specify what kind of spraying you're talking about. Is it roadside? Is it spot? Is it townwide? Is it property-wide? Is it aerial or what? And also, it would be good to have just a quick bullet point summary of what are the effectiveness. What Courtney just said about roadside spraying was very interesting and never heard that before. A quick summary of the pros and the cons. You know, what exactly is known quickly about the effects on other species, because we really can't make a decision without those kinds of information. Thanks.
Okay, yeah, that's a good request. Paul, go ahead.
So I want to speak as a lawyer here for a minute. The General Laws, Chapter 40, Section 8C gives exclusive jurisdiction of this question to the Conservation Commission. This is not a Board of Selectmen issue at all. It's up to the Conservation Commission to determine what it wants done with the spraying of its property. So I don't understand why they would be coming back to us on that issue. Our jurisdiction is only on town-wide issues, opting in, opting out of programs that affect the whole community. But individual properties, that's exclusively a Conservation Commission issue. There's no appeal from the Conservation Commission to the Board of Selectmen. I think our agendas are complicated enough without trying to take over the jurisdiction of other boards and committees. This is a discussion that should be had at a Conservation Commission because they're the ones that are authorized to make these decisions.
Yeah, you're right, Paul, but having listened to that Concom meeting, I believe they were also talking about the townwide spraying question. Is that right or not right, Courtney and Michael?
We had brought up the idea of that the town should think about the bigger picture. It's not a Conservation Commission issue. It's basically just bringing up the fact that now that there's this newer level of opting out that seems to have come about, that it's something that the town should just explicitly consider. And so things have changed. And yeah, in terms of what we were thinking about was the standard stuff. Things have evolved, but it was the standard things that we had done in the past, where there was just the roadside spraying, recognizing that obviously when there's public health issues or other kind of things that supersedes that. It was just limited to that roadside spraying option that's been around for years, but maybe has even evolved a little bit. But that's, but yeah, that's all we were doing with.
Paul, the reason I have this on the agenda tonight was not to question their decision to opt out their properties. That is totally in their jurisdiction. It's the fact that they do report to the select board. They are under the select board, and I found all these issues with the way that they made their decision. And that's what I wanted to bring up. Because these committees that we appoint should have to, you know, if they're not following the rules, as I don't think they did on this, then we should be questioning them, Paul. We can't just let them, that's our job as people who appoint people to the Conservation Commission.
And I do want to say to Paul's point, which is why I identified or called out that they're going to meet on the 19th. It's an open discussion item. The public now has duly noticed. And if they want to comment, request that they reverse something, request that they don't reverse something, I think there'll be a healthy discussion on the 19th. So I'm thank you, Michael, for having that on the agenda. and Courtney, and I think it's important to know that. So they certainly know now. Let's put it that way. So with that, I don't know. So I'm going to recognize Daryl. I think we've beaten this up enough because I think on the 19th is going to be real decisions and not decisions. But Daryl, do you have anything to close on?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting topic which Sean brought up about what might be done around the park to evaluate that. But I have to say, I like the idea of the town taking control of that because it is conservation land. And I think some of the methods that are often used have aspects of them that might be counterproductive. And so I think we might want to look at that, whether, as I think Courtney mentioned, the larvicide is the way to go. The BTI has, for the past, I don't know, decade at least, gets pretty good reviews, but people are starting to find some other issues. And I think Marion touched upon that, of what are the other impacts of these chemicals. And Eric noted bee death, and we certainly don't want that. We rely on them for our food. But quite a while ago, when I was on Groundwater Protection Committee, we were part of an integrated pest management program with Wellesley and I forget what other town that was funded by the state. And so we had the opportunity to look into these issues. I'm no expert, but we certainly attended enough seminars and conferences and all the rest on it. And for example, what happens is you might kill off adults for a day or so, but the mosquitoes bounce right back. They have a very quick turn on their generation cycles, or whatever one might call it, but you can obliterate their predators, such as dragonflies, for 3 years, because that's how long it takes for dragonflies to get established and go from eggs up to adults, where they are really effective at taking care of mosquitoes. So I think we have to balance that, because we might spray, take care of something, and then we're going to have more mosquitoes in the long run because we've gotten rid of the things that are more sensitive higher up the food chain. So it is a complex problem. We're not saying I don't really embrace mosquitoes, but I think we have to be careful in how we approach what we do about them.
All right. Thank you very much. And like I said, there'll be a healthy discussion on the 19th, I have a feeling. If it's okay with everyone else, I'm going to move on, I think, to the next agenda item. Agenda item number 5, consideration of acceptance of American Rescue Plan Act funds. Deb Sifry.
Good evening.
There you are.
Yes, in accordance with Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53A, I'm looking for the Select Board to accept the municipal allocation of the funds from the American Rescue Plan Act in the amount of $453,738,000. So we have already actually received the first half of these funds, which is about $226,000, and we expect to receive the second half in the funds in July of 2022.
So just to accept it, it's not the next item is about what we're going to spend on, just to clarify. Yeah.
That's
so
correct.
by Paul.
So moved. Do we accept the money?
All right.
And put it in the bank.
Paul's always really big money. So
Always.
I have a question, because you and I have been talking about this week too, Deb. So what you're talking about is both the tranches from the state funding. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Because Deb and I have been talking, so we're supposed to get ballpark 1.218 million or something, 40% from the state, 60% roughly from Middlesex County. And so
Correct.
she and I were talking that we haven't heard the details on Middlesex County yet. So this is to accept we've already received half of the federal tranche, I believe, right?
Yes, this is half from the allocation of for Sherborn, for the municipality. Yes.
So are we scheduled to get the second federal tranche or state
I
tranche?
received that announcement the other day that they're going to start the distribution as of August the 16th.
Of the
I'm not
second
quite sure.
of the second state one.
No, the second state one will come 12 months after the first one.
Oh, I thought we got the first one already. We haven't received it yet?
No.
Okay.
Well, no, so we're going to get a total of $1.2 million.
Yep.
And of that, we're going to get about $444,000 for the municipal. We've already received $226,000 of that. And a
Yep.
year from now, in July of 2022, we'll get the other half. Now, effective August the 16th, we're going to get the county allocation.
Right.
sometime, and that should be about 400,000. And a year after that, we'll get the second 400,000.
So this is accepting both the county and the municipal? Is that what you're saying?
No, this is just accepting the municipal, the
Municipal,
total
okay.
of municipal.
Okay,
And once you accept it, we can spend it even though we have not received it.
right.
I can assure you, Jeff, that I'll make a motion to accept any money from the federal government
I'm seconding
from any
Paul's,
source.
I'm officially seconding Paul's motion.
All right, the motion is a second. I don't think, is there any more discussion? Okay, all in favor, Jeff,
All right,
Marianne,
Aye.
George,
Aye.
Paul,
Aye.
and I might as well. Okay, again, next agenda item is how to spend it. Number 6, consideration of ARPA funding request. Deb again.
Yep, the first consideration is for COVID expenses that we have actually already paid from March of 2021 through June the 30th of 2021, which would be in fiscal year 21. The way that we are handling these ARPA funds at the time was we were just charging them to a separate account so that they did not affect the operating expenses or anything for fiscal year 21. And that is a total balance of $73,846.37.
Can I make a motion to approve that?
Second.
Okay, motion second. Any further discussion? All in favor, Jeff,
all right.
Marianne,
Aye.
George,
Aye.
and Paul?
Aye.
I am also aye. Okay, is there a additional part to that?
No, on the second request is for the community study assessment by the COA. I believe Renee Montello is here to speak to that.
Sure.
Yeah.
Renee and Kristen.
Renee, go ahead.
Okay. Hello, hi. So yes, our purpose is to gain approval for funding through ARPA. Our funding falls under ARPA's social determinants of health, the category which pertains to health care outside of physical health and addresses negative economic impacts. We are seeking $30,000 to contract with UMass Boston Center for Social and Demographic Research on Aging to conduct a comprehensive community assessment that will investigate the needs, interests, preferences, and opinions of Sherborn's population who are 55 and older. So I have more information to present. Do you want me to go through all of this, or, I just don't know how much time we have to go through the reasons why we want to pursue this.
Let me bring it to the board. I see George has his hand raised. I'll hear from him and see if what the board's desire is, if we want to hear more detailed or we think this is straightforward.
Okay.
Well, I have a fundamental issue with this, that this was voted down at town meeting by the town citizens. And this is a background way to try to get money that was voted down at town meeting. And I don't think that's appropriate. I think it should be back in front of the citizens. I don't think it's right to try to fund something. How would people feel if we tried to fund the turf field without going back to the town meeting? I don't think it's right.
Okay, this, however, George, is a little bit different. So we're not looking for the feasibility study anymore. We are looking for a needs assessment. And so I think it's best that I go through everything as to why and what the assessment would really entail.
Well, I have 2 more people raising hands, so I do want to at least recognize them, and then we will go. It does sound like it is warranted. We'll go into more detail and to give a presentation. I do want to say the same thing I said last time to George, is that I think this is different because this one got the majority vote and missed the 2/3 vote for bonding. So town meeting only voted down a bond, authorization of bond. It did not vote down technically the expenditure, just the authorization of bond. Since this is the same thing, essentially free cash or retained earnings, this actually is within the tent of the town meeting vote, whereas the fields did not even get the majority vote. So I do think it's not an apples and apples. I do want to be able to say that. And I know I said that before. I still want to give you a chance, but for whatever reason, I still have people raise their hands. So Marianne.
Putting aside the town meeting vote, the way this is written, it does sound quite different from the request at town meeting, but it does make me wonder, as George said, whether this is just a way to kind of get around the the disapproval of the really space-oriented thing at town meeting. But the only other thing I wanted to say is that I don't think we need for you to reread this whole thing, and we got it in our packet. I think we've read it. If you could give us a telegraphic summary, not reading the whole thing.
I think she also had a presentation, but.
Okay, but I just don't want to take a lot of time because we've read it already.
Jeff, did you have your hand is raised?
Yeah, I just want to counter what George said. In addition to what Eric said, I think a couple things. And to what Marion's point, it was really misstated and mischaracterized at town meeting. I think even Renee can contradict me, but even the COA didn't really present their best case, I don't think, for a host of reasons. So I think it was, the voters didn't really know what they were voting on. That wasn't their fault, but they didn't really know. So the one thing I want to ask George to reconsider for is because this doesn't just relate to what the study they're trying to do. We, as I've mentioned before, we have to sign or figure out what we're doing with the community center lease, which expires next February. We're probably going to have an automatic one-year extension, but this study is going to help decide what the senior citizens needs for space, and not just for offices, but for their programs in town. So the reason for doing it and not waiting to a town meeting is because it'll then guide us in making a strategic decision about the community center extension of the lease and how we utilize that building. So I understand the concern, but I think there's strategic reasons for the town why it's important for us to do this. And if push comes to shove and we have a fall town meeting, which I mentioned before too, this year, then maybe we can put it on that program. But it's necessary for the town to determine how to utilize the community center, which is up for renewal.
And Paul, yeah.
Okay, so it does sound like we have, some questions, and I think it's best that I just go through the presentation that I was going to do. I can read it to you instead of bringing up the slides, but I do think it warrants some background information and why we want this.
And I do agree, but I have to recognize Paul. Yeah, he's on the select board and he had his hand raised. I do want to be able to recognize him. I will let you do the presentation. I do want to say one thing to Marianne's point is that, there's 30 people on here and they haven't seen everything that we've seen, you know what I mean? So we might want something a little bit more detailed like that there. But I do want to give Paul a chance to speak because he's been patiently with his hand raised.
Sure.
So the point I want to make is that this is a different request than town meeting considered. It's different in a variety of ways. First of all, it's different in amount. The amount that was sought at town meeting was 40,000. This is 30,000. The project at town meeting had a specific individual in mind who was going to do the work. It was listed as an architectural evaluation. This is the UMass program. It's much broader. It's not limited to specific buildings. It looks at the community as a whole and whether this is a senior friendly community and what we can do to make this community more senior friendly. So it is a wider subject matter, more comprehensive, at a lesser price by a different organization. I think it's entirely different.
Okay, well, we'll know better in a minute because we're now going to let Renee give her presentation and end dialogue among the select board.
Okay, great. Do you want me to share the slides or just go? No.
Yeah, I would like that. I think based on the discussion I've heard, it sounds like it's warranted.
Okay. Can I share the screen?
Yeah, you're good to go.
Okay.
Some people are visual learners, so it's important to.
I agree. Are you seeing the whole slides now?
It's not the presentation view right now. You know what I mean? It's just the your file's open, which is fine, but if you could get it to presentation, view, there you go. Perfect. Perfect,
Okay.
Renee.
Okay, great. So I already went through this first slide that we're looking to gain funds through ARPA. We're seeking the 30,000. So the effects of the pandemic have drastically impacted older adults. There's been a surge of loneliness, isolation, increased anxiety, and age discrimination at work and in communities. We've seen a negative increase on one's physical and mental health given their increased isolation and risk for medical complications. The COA's outreach during the pandemic uncovered those under the radar. We provided essential services, vaccine appointment scheduling, driving to medical and vaccination appointments, transportation to grocery stores, caregiver support services, technology services, and most basic food needs. These social determinants of health, which are the conditions in the environment where people are born, live, learn, play, worship, and act, and age that affect a wide range of health, functioning, and quality of life outcomes and risks, have impacted both the physical and mental health among residents. Funding, so what we are looking for, the funding needs. The older adult population continues to increase across the Commonwealth. The older adult population, 60 and over in Sherborn, consists of 25% of the population and is expected to reach 30% within the next 10 years, if not sooner. Areas that need to be analyzed for social determinants of health include income security, health, including long-term care, access to food and other goods in town, productive aging, including transportation and social isolation. Due to limited medical and mental health services in Sherborn, it requires residents to locate these services out of town. This leads to concern for those older adults who do not drive or who limit their driving. Many older adults live in homes that are not well suited for aging in place, but few options for downsizing are available locally. Maintaining homes can be costly or difficult to manage. Older adults experience physical and social changes that could threaten their independence and well-being if not addressed by specialized and targeted services. Retirees experience constraints associated with living on fixed incomes that reduce their quality of life. Services required by older adults are provided either publicly or through public-private partnerships. Towns like Sherborn will find it necessary to adapt to changing age profiles within their populations. What we've done in the past. As you are aware, the warrant we presented at town meeting did not pass by a 2/3 vote. Following town meeting, the COA staff and board went back to regroup. We took feedback we received at town meeting and decided to pursue a community assessment rather than a feasibility study. Our 60+ population is growing and will continue to grow. In order to help residents age in place, it is important to consider all the factors that will influence their decision on whether to stay in Sherborn or relocate. Sue Kelleher reached out to Caitlin Coyle at the UMass Boston Center for Social and Demographic Research on Aging. They are the leading experts in the field of aging. They've conducted over 40 community assessments across the Commonwealth. They've helped towns and aging organizations plan for the growing older population. They look at all the factors that impact aging and provide data for organizations so they can develop a plan and strategy for providing programs and services older adults may need and want. Demographic profile of the community. So this is what the assessment will include. A demographic profile of the community, which includes existing data from the Americans Community Survey, a mailed survey and postcard notification to all residents aged 45+, including an option to complete the survey online. The survey is intended to go to all residents aged 45+. This is to gather information about the needs and preferences from both current older adults in the community and for those who are moving into that age bracket over the next several years. 3 focus groups with specific groups in town including those who serve the most isolated and vulnerable members of the community. So that would be town administration, maybe the select board, first responders, COA staff, and it's a very highly interactive focus groups. 5 key informant interviews with town decision makers and those who interact with the community at a high level. Preparation of a report and presentation of results and recommendations for addressing the identified needs. These reports would be conducted and reported by the team of the Gerontology Institute at UMass Boston. UMass would oversee the process, which would begin in the spring of 2022, with final results being presented in the fall of 2022. The community assessment is an objective way to identify those how to best serve this population so they can contribute to live and thrive in the town they love. Our goal of this study is to help educate us, the Council on Aging. Oh, did I skip one? I'm sorry. Yeah. The Council on Aging, as well as the town of Sherborn and all its stakeholders and residents about the growing number of older adults in our community. The study will assist the town in planning and coordination of services, as well as build awareness about the issues facing the town of Sherborn. The community assessment will provide a wealth of information and help the town and the COA plan for the future for those that want to live in an age-friendly community. And this is the last one. The COA would like the select board to show their support for this comprehensive assessment, as this will be the tool to use to make informed decisions. And then I just have some resources here. And these are some of the other towns that have already done the assessment. You can see there's a whole, these are just some of them. And then attached here is Weston's community assessment that you might think about reading and reviewing just to get an idea of how in-depth this is.
Thank you. If maybe you can forward us that link on the presentation so we can actually look at that as well.
Sure, yeah.
Thank you.
You could probably unshare now too. Thank you, Renee.
Okay, unshare, oops, sorry. Oh.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much, Renee. And now, are there any additional questions from the board? What we've seen before us. Very good.
Well, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the $30,000 application of ARPA funds to do this community-wide assessment.
Second. Okay, a motion and a second. I do have a hand raised from the general public, so I'd like to hear Daryl's question.
Okay, so at the moment, this is with my citizen resident hat on. I guess one thing, I'd be curious to see if we have access to it, the Carlisle report, because I think that town might be more similar to Sherborn than Weston. And then as I think about this from a broader public health perspective, I'm wondering, since the budget seems reasonable on this, and some of the issues raised about challenges that seniors face, I would also say a lot of that could apply to all age groups really in town, and whether this could look at something of how we might weave together services and other issues to address senior concerns, but might have overlap with anyone, any age group. Just seems to me that COVID has revealed, other things, and that's, I can't think of any better way to say it at the moment. But that's the general gist.
I think we get it. Definitely. Okay. Is there any other questions from the general public? If not, we have a motion and a second on the floor to allocate the ARPA funds, or whatever it's called, for the present for the scope as just presented before us.
I just have one thing. I just have a comment before we vote.
Yeah.
I do recognize that this is a little different than what was at town meeting, but I still also think the optics of this are terrible. That, oh, you took 10,000 off, you changed the name of it. I think people are going to look at it as a way around it, and unfortunately, sorry, I just can't vote for it because it was voted down at town meeting, and I don't think it's right.
I will say that I think so, it's not as much a space needs as the one that was at a town meeting. I don't think it's just a title change.
I'm just saying it's the optics of it. I mean, we're already have a lot of citizens who are mad about different things that we did with the funding of the library, and I think the optics of this are terrible.
It wasn't voted down at town meeting.
It
Is
was,
correct?
Jeff.
No,
It
it
was a
wasn't,
no
George.
vote.
The bonding vote.
Jeff,
The
did it pass?
bonding
No.
vote was voted down. The vote was 54% in favor of it, George.
It's still the vote. It voted down. It was a negative vote.
I want to recognize Marianne. We've had that. Marianne, please.
We're in the middle of a vote, aren't we?
Well, we can still discuss. We can actually, no, we have not taken the first vote. We have a motion and a second. I have actually not even taken the first vote yet. I was on the verge of it, but of course, here we are. But Marianne raised her hand nicely, so I have to recognize that versus the burst outs. Go on, Marianne.
I just want to register my general concern about this. I think my concern is probably not acute enough at this point to vote against it, but I just don't feel that the COA has done their homework. That is, I think we would like to know what are the data that they are missing. They know a lot about their own programs. They have the demographic data of the town. I understand that they'll interview people, but I'm a little concerned that the description of work is very limited. I mean, 5 key informant interviews will be performed. 5, parentheses 5. I just wish it were a little more flexible, and that maybe we can have some input as to what the product should be that's most useful for the town. A lot of these other towns have done it. I guess that's also sort of a strong point, but I just have felt all along a sort of lack of homework done on the part of the COA on this.
If I could interrupt for a minute and respond to that. This is what this assessment is going to do. We don't know what we're missing as part of the COA. They are going to look and review everything that we offer or what we're not offering. And that's, maybe we aren't providing the right type of transportation. Maybe we need to, or maybe we need a food pantry. So these are it's not just to get, it's not to get a building, a physical building. It's to see where our services are lacking. And they are the leading experts in determining that. We are not. So I think this is very different than what we brought to town meeting. Very different. They're completely different things.
Okay,
All right.
thanks for that.
We do have a motion and a second. I would like to go through now and begin the vote in order. Jeff, how do you vote?
Aye.
Marianne, how do you vote?
Aye.
George, how do you vote?
Okay.
And Paul, how do you vote?
Aye.
And I am also aye. I think we could discuss the differences all day long, but thank you very much. We have a vote.
Eric,
And-
I have one question about the ARPA funds, just as a clarification. Did we talk at one point that advisory also needs to approve these, or is it just us? Because Deb, you're muted. Deb, you're muted.
By law, it's just us.
Well, I think we should have some input from our finance committee.
I was going to say the way that we had organized our procedures was it was going to go from here to advisory for their approval as well. And their next advisory meeting is on September the 8th. So that's would be the next course of action, is for this to be presented to them for their vote.
But is their vote, as Paul indicated, is their vote more just kind of like internal, or I guess advisory, ironically? Is it more of an advisory vote, but it's not legally required?
It's not legally required. This whole ARPA thing, every community is handling their ARPA funds differently. This is what our current procedure is.
Eric, can I ask Deb a question?
Yeah.
David, Deb, did we finalize that we would be notifying advisory and they could meet to review it and vote, or let it sit for 30 days and it automatically passes? Or did we not do that?
They had an advisory meeting last night and they chose to see every request. They would like to bring, have vote on every request going forward.
Okay, they want to take a position on it. Okay.
Yes.
All right. I mean, and that's it, this whole agenda item, right?
That is
Okay. Okay, very good.
I have a clarifying question, Eric. Now I'm wondering, and George can maybe back me up on this. Usually the select board votes last. So if we're really, like, if you think of reserve fund transfers, normally we ask advisory to make a recommendation, which would be a vote, and then we would do it second. So if we really, and this is a question for Paul too, if we really want their input, we should maybe have them do it before it comes to the select board. It seems like it would make more sense.
That does make sense, Jeff.
And I think that they did that already. If I'm not mistaken, Deb, didn't they last night look at the ARPA funds for the water project at Woodhaven and Leland
Yeah,
Farms?
They did.
Yes, they did. You had approved those at your last
Yeah.
meeting. So we brought that forward yesterday and they did approve that as well.
I mean, I take
So that-
Paul's message, which that we're really the deciding body, but maybe, as Eric said, they're advisory, but we're deciding before we get the advice is what I
Right.
see happening right now.
Yeah. They're confirmatory.
We should be getting the advice of our finance committee or our advisory committee before we're taking a vote.
I agree.
Just-
Again, this is kind of work in progress. So, it
Yeah.
definitely can.
However you guys want to do it, really.
Ideally, I agree with Jeff and George, where I'd like to maybe have them vote first to kind of make advice, maybe we take it, maybe we don't, but I mean, I think that's just, the appropriate way, because really, if the decision is made, what's kind of the point of them meeting on it? Do you know what I mean? If the decision is per se. But Paul, you had something to say.
Yeah, I want to reiterate that our vote is decisive on
Yeah.
the question of where the money goes. And the second point I would make is that there's a lot of money that's coming to us. And it's coming through different vehicles, different pathways. And some communities are actually having a hard time figuring out where to spend the money. And when I've looked at what other communities are doing, some of the stuff that communities are doing because they don't have projects ready to go, they're doing things that, in my opinion, may be a little frivolous and maybe a little imaginative. But the point is that there's a lot of money coming our way and we should spend it all. It's federal money. We shouldn't turn it back. We should not spend it. We should
That doesn't mean
embrace
we
it
should,
and run with it.
we also shouldn't say yes to everything. We've got to be prudent and make sure we're not being frivolous, Paul. And maybe have an impact where maybe we don't have as much capital to spend and reduce the economic impact on the taxpayers.
Can this be used for that though? I'm not sure. Like, I think
I'm just saying, maybe we have some capital projects that normally would be bonded but they fall into this category. So down the road, it's going to save taxpayers money because we paid for it with ARPA funds.
I see what you're saying.
Instead of bonding and adding to the tax rate.
That's a really good point. I want Marianne.
All right. Yeah. I wanted to make somewhat the same point. Exactly. With all this money, we don't want to just have piecemeal this project come up and we make a decision, and then the next project and we make a decision. Ideally, to the extent that this is possible, it would be great to get proposals, get people brainstorming, and I know that it's been requested that we do this, but get people brainstorming now, get a list of projects, especially infrastructure ones, things that we can't fund through other means, and prioritize them. So, to Paul and George's point, that we make good decisions of high priority things that the town really needs.
One question on the ARPA funds, can it be used? It can't be used to purchase property, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
I think I sent along the expenditure categories. I mean, it's not a broad range of things you can spend it on. It's pretty deliberate of the things that you can and cannot spend the money on. It's all as part of the recovery from the pandemic. So you can't just, you have to be careful. And prior to any of this going to you, I'm having a consultant look at it to make sure that it does fit the needs of ARPA so that we don't find out down the road that it didn't qualify.
Yeah, my idea behind that was if we wanted to expand the bike trail, which is something that, I think would fall under it, but buying the property from CSX would not.
Yeah, I don't believe so.
But another side point to what you're saying, George and Deb, you could give us the details, is that I think we don't have, it's money up through the end of December 31st, 2022, I think. So we don't have to like spend it all in the next 6 months. Is that the right date, Deb?
No, 2024.
2024. So to George's point, we still want to prioritize things, something that we may be considering a year from now. We don't want, if we do something, to Paul's point, something frivolous now, so we do want to have some discretion, I think.
Definitely, I know, no question. I don't know if any of it can be allocated to the Pine Hill Road was the only thing I was thinking of somehow. It's either that or the library or the turf fields. But the Pine Hill Road might be, I'm being more serious about the Pine Hill Road.
I think it would be a stretch to fit into any of the categories, but we
Just
could.
being with the school and the safety and the whole aspect of that, safetiness for the school, and so on.
Well, water and sewer infrastructure.
Yeah.
Maybe some opportunities there we could talk about later.
Very, very good. All right. With no further ado, I'm going to move on to this one here. Number 7, announcement of vote on communications specialist agreement, Article 24 of Police Collective Bargaining Agreement, MCOP Local 158. Who's presenting on this, actually? Is this David?
I think you could just say,
I didn't see him on here.
Yeah,
I can talk to it, Eric, if you'd like.
Chris
there you are,
Brown
Chris.
is the lead
Very good.
negotiator that worked on this.
Yeah, so this is just under the open meeting law, the select board took a vote on this side letter agreement with the police union at a recent meeting. So we're announcing the vote on that. So it's an agreement that increases the number of dispatchers that the police department can have. The terms of the agreement are public. It can be requested by the public. I believe I had provided it to Diane. I don't know if it was included in background for tonight or not, but
it will be on the website.
Okay.
It was included in the packet too.
Okay. And so I'm if there's any questions, I can answer them. Otherwise, if that's just announcing that the board had voted on that, and I believe the vote was 5-0.
But so you don't need a second vote. This is simply making a public announcement, so it's just transparent. And what was an executive session? Is that correct?
Correct.
All right. Consider it so announced.
What's in the packet has got signatures on it from both the union and from the Board of Selectmen. It's a fully signed, executed document. So we're simply releasing it to the public at this point.
Yep.
That's correct.
All right. Any other discussion amongst the board? Thank you. Thank you, Chris, by the way. Thank you. Any discussion amongst the board?
Well, just to explain, I think to the voters, what we're doing here is we're setting the stage for dispatchers, civilian dispatchers to assist the police department. Maybe Chris can explain a little more.
Yeah, and so when we're increasing the number of personnel that would be doing work that was done by the union, under labor law, we had to negotiate an agreement with the union to do that. This will allow us to increase up to, I believe it's a total of 4 dispatchers. We've only been able to have 1 up to this point. So that helps because we won't have to have police officers covering the desk duties that dispatchers could cover. So it allows you to have more officers that are out, on patrol, doing what most people would consider police work. So, and this agreement just spells out, how the union and the dispatchers handle overtime, how their schedule works. Part of this is going to be we'll be seeking an amendment to the personnel administration plan at an upcoming town meeting to change their holiday, how it works, that they actually have they can have the same work schedule as the police, where they would get they have to work holidays, but they get compensated for that. So under the PAP, the Personnel Administration Plan as it is now, since they're regular civilian town employees, they get the holidays off, and so this is just to marry them up with how the police officers work, how their schedule is.
Okay. Any other questions amongst the board? If not, I'm gonna move on after that. So it is announced that actually 5-0, we voted to support the union contract that's provided in the background material. Stick around, Chris. We need you for executive, by the way. All right. Anything else? Routine business. Select board reports. Anyone in the select board have reports?
No, but the only thing I was going to add is I mentioned earlier about the Eagle project that Alex Capillion is going to do. I would propose that we have him come because he'll have slides of his plan and the before pictures, and we could do it either when he finishes or the work should start as soon as council approves it. So I'd like to kind of give Alex a chance to have some recognition for what he's doing.
Absolutely.
Agreed, Jeff. I saw him earlier this summer and he's very excited about the project.
I know he did a tremendous job with the presentation.
Great. No, he should have a chance to present it to us.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Marion, you have a hand raised? You have a report?
Right. Yeah, I just wanted to report on a meeting I was at this morning with a number of towns, Natick, Framingham, and all of the towns in the Metro West collaborative, of which Sherborn isn't really a member, but it was quite interesting. It was focused on regional connections and regional trails. And I spoke briefly at the meeting, as a lot of towns did, on what Sherborn is doing to connect to other towns. But the interesting point, I think, that would interest you is that the Metro West Collaborative and the Mass Trails has a new injection of money from the state, and that the Holliston Rail Trail and the CSX line that goes through the Barber Reservation now up to Framingham has now been designated as part of the East Coast Greenway. So there was a call at this meeting with that designation. It gives Sherborn more clout to negotiate with CSX along with the other towns to get CSX to make a deal to allow us to extend the rail trail, which is a great addition to the town, but it would be even greater if it were extended up through the rails all the way to Framingham. And it would tie the entire Bay Circuit, and it would basically, eventually, the vision is to tie it to the rail trails to the north, so one could travel all over the region by bicycle, including to the commuter trails, commuter rail. So just to let you know that that's in the works, and I'm trying to set up meetings with Framingham. I talked to the Framingham mayor this morning briefly. She gave me the names of who in Framingham might help us get that started. And it's clear that we're going to have to join forces with other towns to get CSX to actually move on this in a way that allows Sherborn to close that gap in the trail system. So just a little FYI.
I've been saying for years that the railroads, the way they dispense of the properties and they basically play towns off of each other. And you've heard me say, I think at the last meeting, how Natick blew the appraisal for pretty much every community in the Metro West for these properties. They paid through the nose. Is just awful. There needs to be a uniform way of negotiating. It sounds like it's a step in the right direction, either collaborative among communities or state help or something like that. But that's the worst part of these rail trail acquisitions, is actually how the individual towns have to go against, these corporations. They play the towns off each other. But anyways,
exactly. So ganging up with other towns is absolutely the way to go. And I'm willing to be the point person on that. But anyone else who wants to be involved is most welcome.
Okay. Okay. Select board. How about we have any town administrator reports?
No, I'm all set. Thanks.
Okay, very good. Well, any further ado, I'm going to close the open meeting or or suggest that we close the open meeting portion of this meeting. As chair, I deem that a executive session is warranted for the agenda items as previously read by the town administrator. And I move that we go into executive session for that reason. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor, Jeff,
Aye.
Marion,
Aye.
George,
Aye.
and Paul.
Aye.
And I'm also aye. All right.